In this city, there exists a notorious criminal gang. Their boss is named Michael, calling himself the black version of Robin Hood, but he deals drugs, kidnaps for ransom, pimps prostitutes. There's no evil deed he hasn't done. Many wealthy people and aristocrats have suffered losses because of him. Normally, Michael should have been locked up in prison long ago. However, he holds compromising photos of a royal princess.
If these photos were exposed, the royal family's reputation would surely be ruined. Because of this, the local authorities are scared to take action against him. Even every time Michael commits a crime and gets caught, he is ultimately released without charges. Having this trump card, Michael's behavior has become increasingly brazen. The high government finally couldn't stand it anymore, deciding to order MI5 to secretly handle this matter.
Based on intelligence gathered after a period of investigation, it's highly likely Michael has hidden the compromising photos in safe deposit boxes at Lloyd's Bank. The director assigned full authority for this secret mission to the man in suit named Tim. Regardless of the methods he uses, he must retrieve those compromising photos. But the most important thing is not to let MI5 be implicated in any way.
After that, Ingrid from the same department as Tim began the first step of the plan. She used a honey trap plan to successfully enter Michael's extended family and get close to them, eventually gaining access to Hakeem, Michael's brother. Ingrid's infiltration could provide more useful intelligence for MI5. In another development, Tim used his contacts to frame his former lover, Martin, for drug possession. Tim did this because he knew Martin was familiar with a group skilled in theft.
He wanted Martin in exchange for becoming an informant to find them, to steal the photos from the bank vault. After the job is done, other assets are theirs to handle freely, but the entire plan must be kept secret. Besides providing necessary intelligence, they must bear responsibility for all consequences themselves. The main figure of the theft group is Terry, formerly a hoodlum on the streets of London, but after getting married, he went straight, living a simple and stable life. Later, he opened a used car shop, even hiring a young couple about to get married to help out. At first, he believed he could make an honest living and support his family peacefully. However, in recent years, new energy vehicles starting price wars caused his business to drop sharply, leaving him with heavy debts. Every few days, loan sharks would come to the shop demanding money and creating trouble.
That day, Martin Terry, her former lover and childhood friend. Martin bluntly told Terry she had a way to get rich. Martin learned from her boyfriend that the subway running through the nearby area affects Lloyd's Bank's alarm system. So the bank planned to take a week to replace the system, and during this time there would definitely be no alarm signals. Martin boldly stated her malicious intent. She wanted to rob the bank. Specifically, she aimed for the many private safe deposit boxes in the underground vault. The gold, silver, and jewels inside are mostly things that rarely see the light of day. The owners of these boxes, even if they discovered their assets were stolen, might not dare to report it to the police. It sounded like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Of course, such a big job required the help of Terry and his close friends. Although Terry really wanted the huge fortune and the conditions Martin offered were tempting enough, it also required taking a huge risk to pull it off. Terry needed some time to think before answering Martin. Then he stood up and left the bar. Immediately, Martin took to Tim sitting nearby about whether Terry would join. Terry, having made his decision, suddenly returned to the bar.
Then, he accidentally saw Martin whispering with a man in a suit. After that, he quietly walked away. Terry felt the whole situation wasn't as simple as he thought, but his trust in Martin made him believe she couldn't hurt him. Terry shared the bank robbery plan with his two close friends and successfully persuaded them to join the operation. One of them was Dave, an adult film actor, and the other was Kevin, a photographer.
The next day, they met at the wedding of Eddie, the young guy working at the garage. Besides congratulating Eddie and Lily on becoming husband and wife, the four of them secretly discussed preparations for the operation. Martin had already opened a safe deposit box at Lloyd's Bank. She used the excuse of showing Terry the safe deposit box to conveniently get him into the underground vault to observe the situation. Dave and Kevin stayed outside the bank pretending to be tourists, taking many photos of the bank's exterior. At that moment, Dave noticed Lou Vogel, the boss he had worked with before. This person is also considered an important character later in the story. Lou Vogel also had a safe deposit box at Lloyd's Bank, but he didn't recognize Dave, who had just greeted him. Afterward, the four of them, based on the gathered information, began planning the next step. Next to the bank was a fried chicken shop, and next to the fried chicken shop was a leather goods store up for sale. The back door of the leather goods store's basement connected to the building's underground parking lot. They planned to dig a tunnel from the basement of the leather goods store straight to the bank's vault. After getting the jewels, they would leave by car through the back door of the leather goods store's basement. At this stage, they needed Bambos, a friend of Terry's who knew a lot about machines and construction. Terry convinced Bambos to join the operation, specifically to handle the tunneling work. Finally, they also invited a seasoned con artist known as the Colonel. He usually dressed like a gentleman, not only having elegant manners, but also speaking with a proper English accent, at least looked completely unrelated to crime, very suitable for appearing to handle difficult situations in emergencies. Finally, Terry had assembled all the members, but before starting work, Terry arranged to meet his wife at a restaurant for a romantic candlelight dinner. Actually, he wanted to tell her he would have to be away from the family for a while because he was currently deep in debt. He was forced to find a way to go out and earn money. He asked Winnie not to ask too many questions because he couldn't bear to lie to his family. For now, he just hoped to take their 2 daughters to stay with relatives for a while, waiting for a safe return. The next day, the team of 6 officially began work. The Colonel took charge of renting the leather goods store and handling unexpected situations. Then, using the excuse of renovating the store, he obtained the building's blueprints from the planning authority and prepared all necessary construction tools. Terry and the others, posing as a repair crew, drove into the building's underground parking lot, brought all the necessary tools into the basement, and their every move was closely monitored by Tim's people. Tim reported the progress of the situation to the director. His plan was to wait until Terry and his gang succeeded, then take the rewards without leaving any trace. Specifically, he arranged people to intercept them to finish the mission. And in a worst-case scenario, they could completely cut ties with Martin, making sure MI5 wouldn't be involved at all. After Terry and the gang were ready, they started construction. They planned to complete the theft mission before the bank opened on Monday morning. Deeper they dug. The loud noise affected the normal business of the fried chicken shop. The shop owner then reported them to the police with a complaint. In just a moment, the police arrived at the leather goods store and knocked on the door. Everyone was scared stiff, immediately stopping work. Fortunately, the Colonel stepped forward and handled it smoothly, revealing no flaws. The police didn't suspect anything, just gave a verbal warning and left the scene. Continuing like this, they definitely needed someone on lookout outside. Terry quickly sought out Eddie. He trusted him for help. Eddie wouldn't get any of the stolen money, but Terry promised to give him the used car shop once the job was finished. Terry told him to find a spot with a wide view on the rooftop of the building across from the bank to watch the area in real time. If he saw any activity, he had to report it immediately to Terry and the others using a walkie-talkie. That evening, Tim also came to the vicinity. He ordered 2 subordinates to monitor the parking lot entrance and exit while he temporarily monitored the himself. Then, Tim deliberately walked around in front of the leather goods store once. Eddie promptly reported the situation but didn't arouse suspicion among the others. Only Martin guessed the man outside was Tim. She used the excuse of going out to buy cigarettes, went to a nearby bar, and using the brief time, she reported the latest progress of the operation to Tim.
Unexpectedly, Terry also followed Martin to the bar. He saw them talking, and Tim quickly left after noticing this. Martin tricked Terry by saying Tim was just a passerby starting a conversation with her. At this point, Terry became more careful, but still didn't reveal Martin.
He took the opportunity when Martin left to secretly make a phone call. Ingrid also secretly reported the situation to Tim. Michael, the gang boss, was preparing to leave London for Trinidad. He handed over part of the illegal business operations management to another person who was Lou Vogel, seen earlier. Finally, Tim reminded Ingrid to be careful and protect himself. As long as the photos were retrieved, no matter where Michael fled, he could be brought to justice. Returning to Terry, after coming back from the bar, the tunneling work. Unexpectedly, the tunnel suddenly collapsed and Terry fell straight into a large pit. Fortunately, he wasn't hurt. The colonel came to check the pit and found it was a mass grave from the London plague of 1665. But by chance, this grave was right under the bank's vault. This actually saved them a lot of time, as they could break through the vault's floor directly from above the grave. Finally, Terry went up to check, confirming it was indeed the vault. However, the toxic gases and dust from the construction made it difficult for everyone to breathe normally. Everyone had to take this opportunity to rest for a bit, then wait for the dust to settle before proceeding with the robbery immediately. Eddie, keeping watch outside, couldn't resist asking about the operation status. The answer he received was, of course, extremely good news. Everyone was even chatting lively over the walkie-talkies. But a nearby radio hobbyist accidentally heard their conversation. He figured from what they said that a bank robbery was happening and reported it to the police. At first, the police didn't believe him, so he recorded the conversation and called them again. However, the radio could pick up signals within a 10-kilometer radius. This area had at least several hundred banks. Unfortunately, the recording mentioned no specific bank at all. Furthermore, Terry and the gang were resting, so no activity could be overheard temporarily. At this point, Chief Inspector Roy signed a subordinate to continue monitoring the radio while he returned to the station to prepare for special action. At this time, Martin, while everyone was sound asleep, sneakily went alone to the bank's vault. Following the clue Tim gave, she had to find safe deposit box number 118. Suddenly, Terry, who had followed behind, spoke up, startling Martin badly. Terry felt sure that Martin was hiding something, but he didn't reveal it. He tried, through indirect words, to make Martin admit her secret, but she was clever and wouldn't tell him unless forced. In this rare moment alone, a passionate kiss briefly eased the tension between them. At dawn, the police dispatched a large number of police cars, dividing into dozens of teams to check each bank, hoping to scare them into communicating via walkie-talkie. Meanwhile, Terry and the gang, fully arrested, entered the vault and began looting frantically. With each safe deposit box opened, large amounts of gold, jewelry, and cash appeared before everyone's eyes. Martin focused all her attention on box number 118. Unexpectedly, Terry was one step faster, retrieving the contents of the box. Inside, besides some of Michael's documents, he found compromising photos of Princess Margaret. Now, Terry finally realized that the secret Martin had been hiding was all in this box, and it was very dangerous, able to cause serious trouble. But Terry had already prepared for this and didn't tell the others, avoiding more problems. At this moment, 2 police cars appeared in front of Lloyd's bank. Eddie immediately informed everyone via walkie-talkie. The officer monitoring the radio also heard their conversation and reported it to Chief Inspector Roy. However, currently, almost all banks in the city had police cars, still unable to pinpoint the walkie-talkie's exact location. At this point, the Lloyd's bank manager opened the door, coordinating with the police to enter the underground vault. Receiving the warning, everyone immediately fell silent, all anxious and uneasy. On the manager's side, seeing that the underground vault door was still intact, he thought there was no problem with the vault. Moreover, opening the vault would have to wait until Monday morning with the bank director's approval. Therefore, the manager and the police left the bank together. Only then did everyone breathe a sigh of relief. However, they knew very well they shouldn't stay there long.
Then they told Eddie to retreat immediately. But just then, an ambulance appeared in front of the bank, sirens blaring loudly.
Just as Eddie was about to pick up the walkie-talkie to inform he accidentally dropped it downstairs, Terry, receiving no reply from Eddie, felt even more that something was wrong, quickly packed up their things and retreated immediately. Eddie's accident inadvertently saved Terry and the gang. If Eddie had managed to mention the word ambulance, the subsequent events would surely not have happened. After hearing no further information, the monitoring officer ruled out Lloyd's bank.
Next, after Terry and the gang finished packing, they drove straight out of the underground parking lot. Tim, who had been waiting for a long time, ordered his subordinates to intercept their car immediately.
Unexpectedly, Tim fell for their trick. The car was empty. It turned out that the night before at the bar, Terry had decided he could no longer trust Martin, so he had hired a driver. After getting a signal from Terry, the driver immediately moved the truck to another location, while Terry and the gang took a different car to secretly carry the stolen items away. Afterwards, Terry led everyone to an old warehouse.
Began inventorying the spoils. Besides a large amount of golden jewelry, they also discovered some compromising photos of high-ranking officials and MPs. Then everyone sorted the loot. After Bambos and the Colonel received their shares, they left first. At this point, Terry took out the compromising photos of the royal princess and bluntly stated that Martin had hidden the truth. Dave and Kevin now also realized something was wrong.
Finally, Martin was forced to reveal her hidden troubles. Only then did Terry and his 2 friends realize that the whole plan had been kept secret from them. Everyone knew MI5 wasn't an organization ordinary people could challenge. They were even more ruthless than the police. Choosing to trust them was a path to death. Dave thought escaping was the most important thing now. Then he left the warehouse alone first.
Tim knew he had been outsmarted by Terry and the gang, but he believed Martin would surely contact him again. After all, those photos were now like a hot potato. Martin surely wouldn't want to seek her own demise. The next morning, the on-ground vault of Lloyd's bank was allowed to be opened. The bank manager was stunned upon seeing the devastated scene before him. Immediately after reporting to the police quickly cordoned off the crime scene.
Following that, all major newspapers in the city reported the bank robbery. In another development, Martin and Terry contacted Tim by phone, arranging to meet at North Iceland train station. Meanwhile, the MI5 director, upon learning the news of the bank robbery spreading everywhere, felt extremely helpless. In intending to resolve everything quietly, it had now become a citywide sensation. If the police caught the robbers first, the compromising photos of the royal princess would surely become public, the consequences unimaginable.
Therefore, he ordered his subordinates, using the excuse that the robbery involved national security secrets, to request the police withdraw from the investigation to control the situation. As news of the bank robbery spread rapidly, some people immediately became furious. First was Lou Vogel, along with Sonia, his associate behind the scenes, and their bribe-corrupt police officer. Lou Vogel and Sonia ran brothels and high-end adult entertainment venues.
Lou Vogel kept alleged ledgers detailing police bribes in his bank's safe deposit box. Sonia's box contained a large number of compromising photos of MPs and high-ranking officials. If their information got out, they would all be finished. Lou Vogel also informed Michael, who was hiding abroad. Upon receiving the news, he immediately became extremely anxious.
Of course, Lou Vogel was more concerned about his own stuff. At this point, Michael felt something was unusual about the situation. He began to suspect Ingrid, the woman of Hakeem, who was also his brother. Michael was a cold-blooded and ruthless person. This time, Ingrid could be in danger. In another development, Terry met Tim at the appointed train station. To prevent him from playing, Terry only brought a few photos of the royal and MPs and told Tim they needed an official pardon document signed by the government and also demanded new passports and exit permits.
Only then would he hand over the rest of the photos. Tim immediately reported back to the director. Initially thought the only major trouble was the royal compromising photos. Now it involved so many high-ranking government officials. Even the director himself was implicated. Now the director could no longer decide unilaterally and had to request Parliament issue a notice. Defense Advisory Notice. Lou Vogel was busy discussing countermeasures with the corrupt police officer.
He suddenly remembered the actor he met in front of the bank a few days ago, an adult film buffoon constantly taking pictures on the street. The more he thought, the more suspicious Lou Vogel became. Then he ordered the two corrupt police officers to capture Dave, who was preparing to flee, and bring him back. Under brutal torture, Dave confessed everything.
The two corrupt officers used Dave's information to search for the whereabouts of the deputy. When they arrived at Martin's residence, they were even chased away by MI5 personnel. Finally, they only found Eddie at Terry's garage and directly kidnapped him. They even left a business card for Eddie's wife, asking her to contact Terry. By now, news of the Lloyd's bank robbery had spread through every street and alley of London. The recording of Terry and the gang's conversation that night was repeatedly broadcast by the police on the radio. Terry's eldest daughter now recognized her father's voice and told her mother, Wendy anxious and uneasy.
Suddenly, Terry received a call from Terry. Terry didn't have time to explain clearly. After reassuring her he was safe, he instructed Wendy and the children absolutely not to go out. After hanging up, he continued by calling the garage. Lily, crying, told Terry about Eddie being kidnapped and gave him the phone number the corrupt officer left. Then Terry called that number. Lou Vogel got straight to the point,
directly threatening Terry to hand over the ledger and the royal compromising photos in exchange for Eddie's life. For Terry, the royal compromising photos were the only bargaining chip for their freedom, impossible to hand over. But they had absolutely no recollection of the ledger Lou Vogel mentioned. Therefore, they flatly denied possessing these two items over the phone. Seeing Terry wasn't easy to deal with, Lou Vogel ordered the corrupt officer to shoot Dave dead.
Eddie was terrified, tears streaming down his face, desperately hoping Terry could come save him. Finally, Lou Vogel gave Terry 1 hour to find the ledger. Otherwise, Eddie would lose his life. After hanging up, Terry and Kevin immediately went to the truck to search for the ledger. Finally, they found the ledger with Lou Vogel's name on it amidst a messy pile of mail. Inside, it detailed the bribe amounts, times, and dates from many police officers and high-ranking officials. Now, the ledger was found, but they faced a difficult dilemma. Suppose they handed the ledger to Lou Vogel, MI5 would surely not spare them. If they gave the photos to MI5, even with the government pardon, Eddie surely wouldn't survive. Moreover, Lou Vogel would also order them hunted down. But thinking from another angle, currently, what both sides needed was in Terry and the gang's hands.
so the initiative belonged to them.
Finally, they devised a plan to play both sides against the middle. To execute the plan, Terry contacted Lou Vogel, arranging to meet him at 11 a.m. tomorrow at Paddington Station for an exchange, hostage for the items. Terry told Lou Vogel if he didn't comply, he would publicize the bribery evidence. At worst, it would be mutual destruction.
What Lou Vogel feared most was spending the rest of his life in prison, so he quickly agreed that members who left first from the robbery, Bambus and the Colonel, were successfully murdered by unknown assailants.
In another development, Terry brought passport photos of the three of them to meet Tim again. Tim said that Lord Mountbatten was willing to personally handle the matter. Terry also demanded the transaction be completed at 11 a.m. tomorrow at Paddington Station. Michael had discovered Ingrid's identity as a spy. Ultimately, poor Ingrid was taken to a farm and brutally murdered by Michael. Early the next morning, Terry and the Ambellic began preparing for another step. Before the exchange, they started searching the newspapers for the name of the police officer in charge of the bank robbery case. Then they cross-referenced it with the names in Lou Vogel's ledger. Finally, they discovered the officer in charge of the robbery was a chief inspector named Roy. His name was not on the bribery list, meaning Chief Inspector Roy hadn't been bought by Lou Vogel.
Terry guessed Roy was probably quite upright. Then he tore out a page from the ledger and instructed Kevin to personally deliver it to Roy. Kevin connected the situation to Chief Inspector Roy, telling him if he wanted the complete bribery list, he had to be at Paddington Station at exactly 11 a.m. and could also arrest the corrupt police officer. After arriving at the train station, Terry and Martin split up. Tim had actually arrived early at the station. However, the person dealing with Terry was Lord Mountbatten. Tim had arranged personnel to ensure the transaction went smoothly and also took the time to chat with Martin. Meanwhile, Terry went alone to the appointed location to wait. At this moment, Lou Vogel and the corrupt police officer escorted Eddie to the scene. As they were about to approach Terry, the corrupt officers spotted the two agents he had met at Martin's place the day before and immediately turned to flee towards the station's back entrance.
At this point, Terry saw Eddie being taken away, feeling frantic. Fortunately, Lord Mountbatten appeared just in time right after. The two sides quickly completed the transaction. Terry immediately chased after them towards the station's back entrance. After catching Lou Vogel, he beat him up severely. Then the remaining corrupt officer raised his gun, intending to shoot Terry. After taking down one corrupt officer, Terry quickly rescued Eddie and stopped the other corrupt officer from escaping. At this moment, Chief Inspector Roy arrived promptly with his team and subdued everyone at the scene. Under normal circumstances, Terry and the gang would also face legal punishment. Tim, at this point, wasn't heartless enough to stand by and do nothing. After all, Terry and the gang had obtained the pardon signed by Mountbatten himself. In the end, Chief Inspector Roy released Terry and the gang. Terry also kept his promise, handing Lou Vogel's ledger over to Chief Inspector Roy. After retrieving the royal compromising photos, MI5 had no more worries and went to Michael's residence in Trinidad to arrest him. Later, they found Ingrid's body in a corner of the farm. Finally, Michael was executed in 1975 for multiple crimes. Today's story ends here. Thank you for watching the movie.
What did you think of this movie? Comment below.